So, what did you think of the album now that you've had a chance to listen to it properly? Do you still feel it verges on the sentimental? That's what you said last week when I played you a bit.
No, I agree that was a bit of a hasty comment on my part. It's atmospheric music, kind of nostalgic in places, which is odd given that they're really young, this band. It reminds me of sort of 1970s film noir, if you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean, but whilst I agree that it creates a certain atmosphere, I couldn't see it as a film soundtrack somehow.
No, I didn't mean that. But it is mood music.
Yes. I'd really like to hear them live, to see if they can create that sort of sultry late-night sound on stage. It's the sort of thing that might not sound the same in broad daylight. I mean, they are young, but they've been playing together for a good few years, actually, and I think they've developed a really interesting style.
Yes, I quite agree. I take back everything I said last week.
In these hectic days when it's hard to know where the home ends and the office begins, it's almost essential to turn part of your home into dedicated office space. Whether it's used to work from home and cut out the commuting, or pound your credit card with internet shopping, the humble table in the corner that once served as a workstation is now a thing of the past. Ergonomics, lights, electrical sockets, privacy, and even a bit of style are the order of the day. But striking the balance between functionality and domesticity is still the key to creating the perfect home office space. I asked design consultant Debbie Brewer to bring me up to speed on what it's cool to have.
I've seen a clear trend for high-speed internet access and wireless systems which allow homes to become a bit more web and work friendly. The functional trestle, whether in wood or steel, is therefore a must. It provides simple support and allows you to move freely around, though some people insist on putting either drawers or filing cabinets underneath to create something not a million miles away from the old knee-hole desk of days gone by.
Getting there is painless. The flight is only 1 hour from London, so you have all the fun of takeoff and landing without too much of the sitting in a cramped space bit that we've all come to love so much with the budget airlines. An excellent feature of the city, though, is that it's not that good for shopping. So, once you've bought the obligatory souvenir from the market, you're not likely to be tempted to spend any more money. And because it's not much of a culinary capital either, you don't have to traipse round trying to locate the best place to get the absolutely authentic fondue or pancake.
That's right. You just eat anywhere in order to keep yourself going for the sightseeing, most of which is done on foot and which is certainly worth the effort. Pleasant though wandering around the medieval centre can be, you have to be careful. The streets are a maze, so there's plenty of room for map-reading nightmares. And although this is statistically regarded as a safe city by international standards, lost tourists clutching maps are a bit of a sitting target for petty criminals here as everywhere.
Antarctica is the wildest continent on Earth and the least visited. Others can be traversed, tamed, occupied, but Antarctica was uninhabitable until the 20th century and remained so until technology conquered the cold. Now there's no reason why people shouldn't enjoy this sensational landscape of mountains, glaciers and islands. Here's the whitest snow, the brightest sun, the bluest sea and the clearest sky anywhere. Unfortunately, though, Antarctica is also the Earth's most politicized continent. In 1959, the Antarctic Treaty established it as a neutral, non-militarized region to save it from international rivalry and preserve it for scientific research. An entire continent was, in effect, donated to one profession for its exclusive use and enjoyment. The outcome is controversial. Antarctica is now dotted with some 50 national research bases, many of them blots on an otherwise pristine landscape. Access to these bases is highly prized by scientists. Demand is overwhelming, since national taxpayers foot bills that can run to $5,000 a week. Polar research is the most expensive, some might say overrated, on Earth. The American base at the South Pole is expanding so fast that a supply road is being driven to it across the ice from the coastal base. McMurdo Station, or Mac City, as it is more commonly known, is the biggest settlement on the continent, with a summer population of some 2,000 supplied by regular flights from New Zealand. Access to these flights is confined to scientists and support staff. This is a shame, because McMurdo Sound, beneath the smoking volcano of Mount Erebus on Ross Island, might have been the most scenic and romantic spot in Antarctica, and it was from here that various early 20th century explorers set off on their missions to the South Pole. Their frozen huts still survive along the shore and are Antarctica's only historic buildings. Yet today the Sound is polluted by construction sites and jet emissions. For 10 years in the 1960s, it was even used as a dump for waste from a nuclear plant. Yet the chief inducement to the cleaning up of the continent has come from possible exposure to tourism, which explains the continued hostility of polar scientists towards the idea. At present, tourists must arrive by cruise ship, but cannot stay overnight on land. Access is thus mostly to the islands and glaciers of the peninsula nearest to South America, which has the advantage of being scenically the most appealing part of the continent. In time, I assume the ban on non-science bases will crumble through sheer weight of visitor numbers. Already a defiant private company, Adventure Network International, has built both an airstrip and a camp in the Patriot Hills. Others will surely follow. There is not the remotest risk of these vast and glorious spaces becoming overcrowded, and no reason why properly regulated tourism should pollute them. Antarctica may have been the wilderness reserve of a privileged elite, but I think those days are over. A new generation of visitors will have no interest in polluting or developing this corner of the globe. They will love it only for what it is. Antarctica is for seeing.
Now, many of you will have seen and admired Linda Buckland's striking drawings of the River Thames in London, which were featured in a recent edition of a leading monthly magazine. Linda joins me today to talk about her work. Linda, hello.
Hi.
Why the river? Where did it all start?
Well, I feel energised by drawing a living, breathing thing. And when I'm drawing down by the river, I much prefer it when there's something going on. A ship's docking or the cranes are moving. It's easier to feel involved, part of the action. And my paintings are all about life and movement. As far as themes are concerned, I'm not interested in landscapes as such.
And they have a wide appeal, don't they? Because we can all place them. We know where we are with them.
Well, maybe that's because I'm actually quite resistant to the idea of moving into abstract art, because that's what everyone kind of expects you to do. And the resistance stems, I think, from where I did my training. I was at a college where there was a very strong emphasis on figure drawing and traditional drawing skills generally. It would be hard to shake that off, even if I wanted to.
So, do you actually do the drawings down by the waterfront?
Not much of the work is done in situ, actually. Just the preliminary sketches. Those then act as my source of inspiration. I take them home and work on them and play about with them until I get an idea of how a finished drawing might look. The drawings often take the form of composite images, actually.
So your workspace is pretty important to you.
It's funny you should mention that, because when I did those particular drawings, I was working in a rented studio in South London. It was a great space with a nice atmosphere. It was big enough to have 6 or 7 pieces of work on the go at the same time. But it was beginning to get me down, because although it wasn't that far away in terms of miles, it was a stressful journey to get over there. I often found that ideas that were fresh in my mind as I left the house in the morning were draining away by the time I'd fought my way through the traffic.
So where do you work now?
Well, as I say, I'd had it in mind for some time to find a workspace closer to home. And then one day, earlier this year, I noticed an easel in an upstairs window in one of the houses on the other side of the road where I live. I knew the girl across the road was an artist, but for some reason I thought she was a designer working in a potter's studio or something. I'd never met her to talk to, so it was a pleasant surprise to realise not only did I have a painter living nearby, but she also did her work there too.
A real coincidence.
Amazing! I was seeing the easel standing there was one of those eureka moments, you know. I phoned her later on and said that I had a show coming up and could I rent a room on a short-term basis. As it turned out, she was happy for me to take over a room as a temporary studio.
So it's really worked out well for you.
I've only been in this studio for a couple of months, but it's already proved to be a revelation. And there's the obvious benefit of just having to cross the road to get there. And at first I was concerned about whether I'd be able to completely detach myself mentally from the normal day-to-day routine, which is vital. I know I'd be terribly distracted if I actually tried to work at home.
So, tell us about the exhibition.
Well, the work I'll be showing at the exhibition in September is all new work, a lot of it produced in my present studio. Working there has had a real impact on my work. I think it's got a lot to do with the fact that I can come in and work in short bursts. One of the effects of that has been that the work has been developing more quickly, and I think the images are sharper as a result. But it's not only that. The colours have changed, become softer, though I couldn't tell you why. Overall, I think the effect is a much stronger image.
And what does the future hold?
Although I've started to experiment with different surfaces and mediums...
Speaker 1.
I knew I'd have to do a course. Everyone in my office has. It's part of our staff development programme. The management let you choose it as long as it's relevant to your work. I'd read about mine in an online magazine, a proper write-up by someone who'd done it, not an advertisement, and it sounded okay. By chance, I booked the same dates as a friend in the finance office, so we had a good laugh. I don't think I gained much from the course, though. I'm still earning the same. But I've noticed that I am being given a few different things to do in the office now, so maybe it was worth it.
Speaker 2.
You see lots of courses advertised in trade journals and on the web, but it's hard to know which one to pick. In the end, I took the advice of my boss, who seems to know what she's talking about, and did one on problem solving. The course was great, really focused, with excellent trainers, and I came away feeling much better equipped to face the demands of my job, more self-assured. It remains to be seen whether it leads to an increment on my salary or promotion, but it was a good choice for me. I even met some interesting people working from rival firms, but we didn't swap contact details or anything. Perhaps we should have done.
Speaker 3.
Basically, we go on these courses every year, and they're usually a waste of time. My colleague had warned me that this one was hopeless. But you never know who you're going to meet, so I went anyway. The tutor on last year's course had recommended it, and I couldn't be bothered looking through the advertisements to find an alternative. As it happened, I got quite a lot out of the course. I found out about some new marketing techniques that sounded just right for a project I was working on. I think the people I work with were really impressed, actually, when I suggested using them. So, who knows? Perhaps I'll be given a bit more space to do things my way in future.
Speaker 4.
Basically, I wanted to spend more time in the office and less time on the road, but I needed better IT skills to do the desk work. I'd read about these IT courses in the newspapers, but I knew my boss wouldn't pay for me to go on one because there's no training budget in our department. Then, one evening, I got talking to a chap on the train who'd just done one. He made it sound so good that I decided to pay my own way, thinking it might be an investment in the long run. And I was right. Thanks to that certificate, I've got an interview for a job at a higher grade next week.
Speaker 5.
People laughed when I said I was going to do a course on time management. I mean, there are courses you can do that give you points on the salary scale, but that wasn't one of them. Anyway, my ex-flatmate, who's a travel agent, had done it, and it had certainly helped her. Deadlines had always been a problem for me. That's why I was never put on new projects, and that annoyed me. Anyway, I did the course, and not only did I find out how to organise my workload better, but I was also put into a group with some really high-powered recruitment consultants. It was through them I found the new job I'm starting next Monday.